Hi, welcome to our channel Good New. Since the United States updated the chip regulations for Russia, an increasing number of firms have ceased their operations in Russia at the request of the United States. All of the factors are inextricably linked to U.S. regulations. Russia is now an excluded item for semiconductor companies. Even the world's largest chip foundry, TSMC, halted exports to Russia in February of this year. In actuality, the impact of the inability to manufacture chips is negligible. After all, Russia may have little choice except to manufacture mid to low-end chips. However, there is a greater concern currently, which is equal to taking money from the bottom of the Russian chip. The chip architecture business arm is rumored to be suspending Russia's authorization. So, what effect will ARM's action have on Russia if it is fully implemented? What can Russia do in the future to mitigate the impact of ARM? Sadly, ARM has stopped issuing licenses to Russia. Apple and Samsung said last month that they would no longer sell goods in Russia. Additionally, Qualcomm declared that it will halt selling processors to Russia. A major chip producer in the globe is Qualcomm. Its Snapdragon 7 and Snapdragon 8 series processors are found in popular mid-range to high-end Android devices, and Qualcomm's 5G baseband is also included into Apple's iPhones. Qualcomm lacks the capacity to produce chips. It specializes on chip research and development. Samsung has produced the majority of Qualcomm's processors in recent years, though. Therefore, Qualcomm may find it challenging to continue selling its chips in Russia when Samsung ceases doing so. Of course, Qualcomm and Samsung may also have an impact on the domestic mobile phones now available in Russia. The two biggest producers of computer chips in the world, Intel and AMD, have declared that they would no longer sell their products in Russia. These two producers also supply the majority of the chips used in servers, as well as the majority of the chips used in desktop computers and laptops. Because there are so few alternatives, I believe the product supply cutoff by a computer chip maker will have a significant impact on Russia. It's remarkable that this prohibition is verified by email, even though ARM, the number one provider of semiconductor intellectual property worldwide, just declared that it will no longer offer goods and service to Russian clients and partners. Of course, emails were utilized often. There is evidence, and some businesses accept email as legitimate. The two largest Russian processor manufacturers, MCST and Belga Electronics, were reportedly added to the entity list on May 5 of this year. In addition to freezing the assets of these two companies in the UK, it is also rumored that the technical services offered by British companies to Russia will be strictly regulated. The firm itself, ARM, is British. This British judgment definitely also indicates that ARM may find it challenging or impossible to grant Russia permission to utilize the ARM architecture, which means that Russian chip design firms may likewise find it difficult or impossible to use the ARM architecture to create chips. It is claimed that this issue is more significant than TSMC's decision to halt shipments. How much of an effect will it have, then? Russian chips may be forced to stay 15 years behind the curve as a result of the unfortunate closure of ARM's operation. In its office in Moscow, Russia, Huawei built an ARM-based data center on July 27, 2021. The Division of Intelligent Computing Systems of Huawei constructed this data center. This is the first ARM data center in Russia. Russia may not be able to rely on this data center to strengthen its software capabilities if it develops quietly at this rate. However, ARM may now revoke Russia's permission. Everything will be mirrored. Additionally, Mungpo is the most sophisticated chip manufacturer in Russia owing to the delay of supplies caused by 8 giants like ARM. However, this local company in Iluasu is only able to mass-produce 65 nanometers chips. Regarding the fabrication of chips using the 65 nanometer advanced technology, TSMC began mass production in 2006. Therefore, once ARM suspends Russia's permission of the ARM architecture, Russian chips would instantly revert 15 years. In this way, Russia's market competitiveness may be significantly reduced today due to the fiercer rivalry in the chip industry, which is not advantageous to Russia's economic advantages and market position. The impact on Russia is significant once ARM suspends its permission to Russia, to put it briefly. Is there any chance that Russia will survive this crisis in such a situation? Russia, can it weather this crisis? Russia actually has high hopes for surviving this crisis. China and Russia jointly released a statement on November 30, 2021. The joint statement states that China and Russia will keep working on terminal operating systems, intensify collaboration, and do all possible to encourage docking and trade between businesses in the two nations. This indicates that China and Russia continue to work closely together. With such a solid base for collaboration and a growing Sino-Russian partnership, Russia may not be able to weather this crisis. Additionally, there are several chip architectures available nowadays outside only x86 and ARM. On December 20th of the previous year, Chinese academician Ni Guangnan delivered a speech at the release ceremony for the 16th China Chip Integrated Circuit Promotion Conference and the China Chip Excellent Product Collection event. One of them, Ni Guangnan, stated that China can effectively concentrate on the RISC-V architecture to build the chip sector in order to take the lead in its development. Although the University of California, Berkeley invented the RISC-V design, it has a strong openness because its headquarters are in Sweden, a neutral nation, therefore there should essentially be no fear of getting cuffed by the US. Russia might not be able to find a different means to actively develop RISC-V within the constraints of products, and it might not be able to survive this crisis with RISC-V. Of course, conducting independent research is the best and safest method. Since key technology cannot be purchased, rented, or borrowed, academician Ni Guangnan also said this. However, this route might not be successful given Russia's illogical technology. Overall, though, there is still optimism that Russia will be able to weather this crisis. The problem shouldn't persist because ARM suspended its authorization to Russia. Short version: Russian chip manufacture is impacted by TSMC's halt of exports. However, when ARM's supply is cut off, this is much more dangerous. It effectively halts the approval of chip architecture in Russia, which is unquestionably more crucial for the growth of Russian chips. Even worse, Russia's future chips may not just advance backwards by 15 years. But given the current state of economic globalization, it's possible that Russia won't be able to weather the chip development problem. Russia still has China or itself to rely on because ARM has shut off its supply. The wisest course of action for Russia is to step up its efforts in scientific research and pursue independent study. The safest technology is, after all, that which it controls. Thanks for having your watching in this video. You can add your ideas or suggestions below. Please keep following our channel and like our videos.